depression has become the leading cause of global disability. Fear of engaging in creative tasks can reduce performance. If you're ever felt stuck, overwhelmed, or unsure about your path, you're not alone.
I thought it was a labeling mechanism and not true medicine. And in my belief that we've lost ordinary language around human affairs, the creative process necessarily comes with mistakes and messes. You're not supposed to have ideas and imagination.
Welcome to Khan Clinics, your dedicated space for exploring the vital connections that shape your well-being. Here we dive into everything from achieving peak physical fitness by mastering sustainable weight management to optimizing your diet for a vibrant life. We're passionate about uncovering the power interplay between your mental and physical health, offering you insightful strategies to nurture both. Join us as we unlock the secrets to embark on your self-confidence and your inspiration by interviewing top-rated personalities, not from only the US, but around the world. At Khan Clinics, our commitment is to bring you evidence-based information that inspires you to confidently control your health journey and live your life to the absolute fullness. I'm your host, Amir Khan. Let's get ready to unlock the true potential of being a human with the most amazing people around us. Eric, you talk about fearless creating. You encourage artists to face uncertainty. You tell them to be courageous during these times. Give us some tips. Why is this important? And what do we do when doubt creeps in?
Well, let me tackle the second first. Doubt is bound to creep in. And it's bound to creep in because we ourselves, as we look at our body of work, know that we've done work that isn't good. So doubt is bound to creep in that we don't know that the next thing will be good because we have a history. And we have an understanding that not every, whether we're half denying it or not, still we have an understanding that not everything we do is brilliant. So doubt is bound to creep in. So we have to find our ways of affirming hope and re-announcing to ourselves that what we do matters to ourselves. The biggest message that I try to communicate to the folks I work with is that they matter and that their efforts matter. I may believe it more than they do very often. I believe that the efforts of one person to help one other person with a poem or a painting or what have you matters. I believe that matters. In fact, the avant-garde artists of the turn of the last century had a phrase which was an audience of one. That is, they felt that if they reached it, even just one person, that was their proof that they were mattering. So that's my message to the folks I work with, is that when doubt creeps in, remind yourself remind yourself about the creative process, that it comes with good stuff and bad stuff, and that you have to tolerate your own doubt and, so to speak, talk yourself out of it. Let me just add one thing there. Cognitive therapy, of course, is very popular. It is the therapy in the UK. It's very popular worldwide. I think there's another place for that way of thinking to go, and that is, in addition to dealing with our thoughts, substituting them or blocking them or what have you, I think we can change the source of our thoughts. I think we can redesign our mind. And that's one of the things that I hope I can help clients with, is this idea that they can actually change the landscape of their mind, make it more friendly, visualize it as if it were a room, and redecorate it. If it's got dingy walls, paint them white. If it's airless, install some windows. In other words, this is just a metaphor, of course, but I think it's a metaphor that can really help a creative person understand the power they have to change not only their thoughts, but the source of their thoughts. That was the second half of the question. I think I've lost the first half. If you can refresh my memory.
It was about fearless creativity.
Sure.
But can I just finish on your point about you talking about your thought process? You said redesign it. You
Yes.
want to eliminate the negativity that is there and redecorate, repaint, reorganize.
Yes.
How do you keep it all the time going when you know by default human brains have a fight, flight, fright phenomena, and they're always in a have that negative um, components. They're skeptic about things. How do you
Yeah.
paint it to an extent that it's always a positive, especially when you're living in a world
It's not.
that
It's not about positive. It's about. Sorry to interrupt, but it's not about positive. It's about, does it serve you? I think it's easy to latch onto the idea that your goal is to think thoughts that serve you. It's not about right or wrong or good or bad or negative or positive. Just, does this thought serve me? And many true thoughts do not serve creative people, and they don't understand this. For instance, if you're a writer and you go into a bookstore and you see all these books, you might inadvertently say to yourself, wow, there are a lot of writers out there. That's a true thought. There are a lot of writers out there, but it's not going to serve you to think that thought, because you're going to be demoralized by how many writers there are. So if you can latch on to this key idea that the second you think that thought, wow, there are a lot of writers out there, you have to dispute it, not its veracity, because it's true, but its utility. It's not useful. So I do think it's not that one can be positive all the time, but I think one can be monitoring one's thoughts in terms of their utility all the time, and have this simple phrase to say to yourself, which is this serving me? Am I going down a rabbit hole with this thought? Is this useful to me? Let me just tie that to the idea of daily practice, which I'm a big believer in, because I think for creative folks, when they don't do their work for a few consecutive days, months and years vanish. The second they lose touch with their work, long swatches of time disappear. This every creative person has had this experience of working on a novel, skipping 3 or 4 days, the in-laws visit, or the water main breaks, or something happens and they skip it, and it's 3 months later before they return to the novel. So I think that the combination of thinking thoughts that serve and understanding that it's a daily practice to think thoughts that serve, to be very mindful of the idea of doing things like brushing your teeth, doing things that you automatically do every day, and making sure that you institute exactly the right number of daily practices that serve you.
So, Eric, you're saying any thought we get, we should think of it. Is it going to be useful for me to think about it or not? Just
Yes.
analyze. Can I apply it in my life? Can I carry it with me? What is it going to serve? And what is it going
That's
to,
right.
how is it going to help me? So you do that to every thought? How do you do that to everything?
It's hard to explain in words how that works. I think to begin with, it's very awkward. And yes, you do it for every thought, and it feels unusual and not fun. But then a point comes where I think you start to do it automatically. I think you're not even asking yourself the question, does this thought serve me? I think in my model of how a mind might work best, in that model, because you've redesigned your mind, the thoughts that don't serve you stop coming up. This is about ultimately extinguishing the thoughts that don't serve you. So, because you think of it this way, if a thought, so to speak, knows that it's going to be disputed, then it doesn't even have a reason to utter itself. Over time, if you get into this rhythm of, why even should I think that when I know I'm going to dispute it, and put it aside. So if you can get into that rhythm, then I'm using a lot of words to say something that's ultimately very simple, which is just getting out of the habit of saying things that don't serve you. And I think we can get to that place, at least as close as a human being can get to that place. When we're surprised by something, we're going to think a thought that doesn't serve us. When we're traumatized, we're going to think. In other words, things happen that override this good habit of thinking thoughts that serve. But even so, there's a phrase I teach clients, which is sooner rather than later, a very simple phrase, which means try to return to the best model of your brain possible sooner rather than later. Don't indulge yourself in going down rabbit holes or creating dramas or thinking thoughts that don't. Stop indulging yourself that way and remind yourself to come back to this solid place sooner rather than later.
Fascinating, fascinating. I find it brilliant because you're now defining a state of mind someone has to be in. You wanna first remember your calm, your peace, your
Yes.
serenity, where you're relaxed the most. And every time you go into anything other than that, just remind your mind to come back. Would Isn't there danger of not challenging yourself, not be able to cope stress? Because at times there's a lot coming your way.
Yeah.
How do you
I get the question. I completely get the question, which is why I advocate for something I call serene readiness. That is, we've had the idea of serenity for thousands of years, but we haven't married it with a certain kind of idea about readiness. And I think we need that readiness more in these times than ever before, so that we're not surprised by some world event or by some insult that we receive on social media or what have you. Let me give you a simple example of serenity married with readiness. There's the Zen adage: when you peel a potato, just peel a potato. That is, just concentrate on the thing you're doing and not have any other kinds of thoughts. That's kind of an ideal in Zen. I don't agree with that. I think for a creative person, when you peel a potato, you might as well be plotting your novel at the same time. There's no reason why you shouldn't be holding yourself open to a good idea, to be ready for a good idea for your novel to come to you at that moment. So I think I think there's a possibility for a new model of how now should feel. And, and the goal is not serenity per se or calmness per se. It's calmness with this built-in readiness so that we're alert and alive while calm.
okay? And so so I guess that explains you want to be in this state of mind, but then you are ready to combat any difficulty that comes. You're
Yes,
training your mind to address the issues and then come back to that state again. And then you're saying to yourself, well, how did it serve me? Did it help me in any ways? And you're saying, well, it does, because it still makes you stronger, and your mind's practice in generally
yes.
helps you.
I mean, there are many things to add, but let me add one point, and that is one of the secret challenges of the creative life is that the activity of choosing provokes anxiety. Just making choices. Should I buy this car or that car? Should I eat this or should I eat that? All of
Absolutely.
that provokes. And the creative process is one choice after another. That's what the process is when you boil it down. It's, should I send my character here? Should I send my character here? Should I put the comma in? Should I take the comma out? So the creative process is continual choosing. And I think you can sense how anxiety provoking that could be if you had to really choose as opposed to be in that flow state where the choosing happens. If one had to rationally make one choice after another a billion times over, we would just throw the enterprise away. We go, it's too much choosing. And most creatives don't understand the extent to which a lot of their resistance or blockage has to do with not being able to face the next choice. Maybe they've just faced 75 consecutive choices, but now they have to make a big decision about whether to send their character here or there. And they're just not up to making yet another choice after an hour of choosing, yet another choice. So they leave the work to the side and have trouble coming back to it. Part of the repertoire of a successful artist is to make choices easily. This doesn't mean they're making the right choice, but they're just not getting stuck on the activity of choosing. They keep making choices. And then they see what they've wrought. Then they see what they've got. Then they have, so to speak, the draft of their novel, and they can see if they made right choices or wrong choices. But they don't get hung up. They don't prevent themselves from choosing. What they say to themselves essentially is onward, forward, next choice, next choice, next choice. And not everybody can do that. Not everybody's comfortable with that kind of forward motion.
Thank you for explaining that. It's very, very fascinating. Our original question, part of it was fearless approach, fearless creativity, or fearless creating. You discussed
Yeah.
that. Would you explain that in the context of the discussion we just have had? And I think it makes it easier now to understand, because you're creating, making choices, you're fearless, and you're moving forward.
And then the world gets to judge you. That's where the bravery comes in yet again. I think everyone is beginning to understand that the world's number one phobia is public speaking. More than bridges or flying or spiders or anything, public speaking. Why is it so scary to stand up at work and speak for 2 minutes about your job description. How could that be so scary? It's not a saber-toothed tiger. What's going on there? Whatever the reasons are, it turns out that it's really difficult to expose ourselves. We don't want, that's why so many people go the conventional route. They don't want to expose themselves. Creative performing artists are saying, look at me. And the second they say that, what they're also saying is, and criticize me if you must. You're going to have an opinion. I'm not going to like half of the opinions out there, but I'm willing to tolerate that. I'm brave enough to tolerate the pushback from the world that's necessarily going, that's absolutely certainly going to come. If a creative or performing artist goes into the game believing that they're not going to be criticized, we know that that's implausible. We know that they're making a mistake there. And we know that this, and we also, I think, know that the second they get their first criticism, they're kind of done for. They're going to take that criticism much to heart. Another of the places I have to help creative and performing artists with is helping them build a thicker skin so that the casual opinion of somebody doesn't matter to them so much.
Thank you for explaining. And then I want to just go on to another area that you've explored a lot, and I want to hear your views on it. And that's early morning creativity to produce productivity, thinking, timing, flow. I want you to hear your views on that.
It's super important. I try to sell every client on the belief that they should turn to their creative work first thing each morning. First thing, even if they have a day job, get up an hour earlier. Nobody wants to hear that. But nevertheless, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm selling. Get up an hour earlier. There are 3 reasons. One, if you did this every day, you would, of course, be maintaining a great creative routine. So that's the obvious one. Just to wake up every morning and get to your work would be wonderful in terms of routine. But the number 2, people don't understand. I'm sure you know this, but we both dream during the night, but we also think. We do 2 different things during the night. And everybody knows about dreaming. Since Freud wrote Interpretation of Dreams in 1899, we've been perseverating about dreams, more dreams, and we've missed the boat on how much thinking we do during the night. If a creative person will go to bed with a certain kind of wonder, like, I wonder what Mary wants to say to John in chapter 3 of my novel, that artist's brain will work on that during the night. Mary and John will have a conversation. And if you were to wake up and just turn to your novel, all you would have to do is take dictation. It would be there. Creatives are wasting all of that brilliant thinking time that they're doing while asleep by not turning to their work first thing. It's a super big waste to not be using that. And that's why I try to sell every creative person on the idea of turning to their work first thing. And then the third reason is existential in nature. And that is, if you get a little real work done first thing each day, then you've built some meaning reservoir for the rest of the day. And the rest of the day will be less depressing than if you hadn't gotten some real work done. It's important to get to our real work at some time during the day, but it's best if we get to it first thing in the morning so that we've had the experience already of having made some meaning on that day.
Thank you for explaining. That's fascinating. And I want you to give a message to our audience. What would you say? What is the final message you'd like to give them from your aspect? Something, it could be anything, but something that's close to you, special to you.
Yeah, I think it would be a bit of a repeat of what I'm saying, which is creative and performing artists sometimes forget how much they love the thing that they're intending to do. The love gets lost. They're going to have to reignite the flame. There's nobody out there reigniting that flame for them. Most of the people around them are not really supportive. Their parents are not really supportive of their desire to be a poet. They have to reignite that flame. And loving your work is really important. It's hard to just white knuckle creativity via discipline. I think we need devotion too. We need the love aspect. So I guess my last message would be to just remember what it was like at the age of 5 or 6 or 7 to read a book in a corner of the room, or watch a movie, or listen to music, or dance, or play. We loved that stuff. Nobody had to tell us to love it. We just loved it. I think that's innate. That's really important in our system. And I think if we refresh our memories about that, that'll help us stay the course.
Brilliant. Absolutely wonderful. Very fascinating, thought-provoking conversation. Dr. Maisel, thank you for sharing your your wisdom, your creativity, and your emotional wellness as well. Your work challenges us to think differently, live more intentionally, and of course, honor the inner life of the mind and soul. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
What a remarkable journey we've just experienced together. The path to health isn't always straight, but it's always worth the effort. I hope today's conversation inspired you to take the next step in your wellness journey, armed with new knowledge and a fresh perspective. If today's episode left you inspired, share it with people, someone who need to hear this. Give us a thumbs up and your opinion. Keep exploring, keep evolving, and we'll see you in the next episode of Khan Clinics.